have been 24 official James Bond movies with 6 actors portraying the iconic British agent.
After 56 years, it's one of the longest-running franchises in film history.
Across that half-century, which entries are the best in this legendary series?
These are the top 5 best movies about
Bond. James Bond.
Number 5. From Russia with Love. You never forget your first, and Sean Connery polished a pearl. James Bond is on a mission to receive a device and intelligence from a defecting Russian spy, Tatiana Romanova. The plot thickens when it's revealed that she's a double agent, but may have also developed real feelings for Bond. From Russia with Love is the second in the Bond series, and with twice the budget of its predecessor, Dr. No, it was able to accomplish much more. Right away, it features one of my favorite opening credit visuals. The real women's bodies with projections stand the test of time over the animated silhouettes that were to come. Unlike a lot of other films in the series, this felt like they really used their Bond ladies well. Moneypenny is the best, but from combat to consent, the other femme fatales are presented so well in such an early film. There are some great lines throughout the series, but my favorite are these quips that showcase Bond's creativity and cool under pressure.
We'll have a much safer journey.
Not mad about his tailor, are you?
Bond even buys Romanova outfits for a bit of a fashion show. I mean, how was I not going to love this? Followed by the classic fight sequence in the train car, using the layout of its close quarters and intimate camera angles to make the sequence feel extremely personal and urgent. This movie had the unforgettable gadgets like the Swiss Army briefcase and knife shoe, and also the best code phrase that makes you feel like you're in on the spy lingo every time it's uttered.
Excuse me. Can I borrow a match?
I use a lighter.
Better still.
Until they go wrong.
This movie has everything you've come to expect from James Bond. Wiretaps, double-paned glass, assassins in disguise, a boat chase, a helicopter chase, seduction, and of course, some classic Bond wisdom.
Red wine with fish. Well, that should have told me something.
Number 4. Goldfinger. In 1964, James Bond got his first blockbuster movie in Goldfinger. Now it has become arguably the most iconic Bond film. Go ahead, list a quote or character. Chances are it's in this movie.
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
There are so many factors working together to make this movie truly memorable and thrilling. The writing is great, introducing tongue-in-cheek humor to the character that Connery plays off perfectly.
Shocking. Positively shocking.
The villain, Goldfinger, was perfect. He was cunning, controlling, and over the top in a wonderful way. He is my favorite Bond villain.
Do you expect me to talk?
No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
The way he had Bond girl Jill Masterson killed by being painted gold was unique, and created an iconic image that was featured in Life magazine. There was even a rumor going around for decades that the actress that played her was actually killed by skin asphyxiation on set. The music was awesome. This was the first Bond movie to feature the title song being played over the opening sequence. The theme song was catchy and kind of sexy. The way that it was incorporated throughout the score was genius. Goldfinger became the new template by which many future Bond movies were created. It was the first movie where Bond relied on gadgets in addition to his great spy skills, and introduced audiences to the Q briefings.
And incidentally, we'd appreciate its return, along with all your other equipment. Intact for once when you return from the field.
Oh, you'd be surprised the amount of wear and tear that goes on out there in the field.
But perhaps one of the most iconic moments to come out of Goldfinger is how Mr. Bond prefers his martinis.
A martini, shaken, not stirred.
Cheers.
Number 3. Goldeneye. Goldeneye is a very important film in the Bond franchise. And no, not just because of the video game. In 1986, 007 was on a mission in Russia with his close friend 006, aka Alec Trevelyan. When Alec is apparently killed, Bond completes the mission but carries his friend's death with him into the future. 9 years later, Alec resurfaces as the leader behind a plan to wipe out London's entire financial history and destroy its economy while electronically robbing the Bank of England. He attempts to achieve this with a series of satellites called Goldeneye. Bond now has to stop his former friend before England's entire history is eradicated. Pierce Brosnan and director Martin Campbell successfully brought Bond into the 90s with this epic revamp of the character. Since the previous Bond film's release, the Cold War had ended and the Soviet Union had crumbled. They took this opportunity to address the character's somewhat stale tropes, but did it in a very smart and engaging way. The cast in this movie is incredible. Brosnan proved to fit this role like a glove and is still one of the best Bonds to ever tie the bow tie, specifically in Goldeneye. There's just a depth to him that we hadn't seen much of before. Sean Bean as 006 was a great idea for a villain, and Bond's friendship with him set the tone for an engaging through line that had us caring about the character's past. Alec Trevelyan is one of Bond's best adversaries, and Sean Bean was the perfect choice to bring him to life on screen. The introduction of Judi Dench's M in this movie is perhaps the most important. She lasted longer than Brosnan in the series and was a mainstay for many years. Her assessment of Bond in their first meeting was nothing short of a powerful statement that showed just how different this version of the character was going to be.
You don't like me, Bond. You don't like my methods. You think I'm an accountant. A bean counter, more interested in my numbers than your instincts.
The thought had occurred to me.
Good. Because I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur. A relic of the Cold War.
Overall, the movie is filled with fun action, deeper characters, and an interesting plot that revitalized the series for a new era.
Number 2. Skyfall. 2012 was the 50th anniversary of the Bond franchise, so expectations were high on the movie that would celebrate it. Skyfall delivered and surpassed on these expectations. Skyfall deals with the recurring theme of MI6 and James Bond being relics of the past, things that are no longer necessary or even sometimes welcome in today's world. What this movie does wonderfully is combine the new, grittier, more realistic Bond with the sometimes corny Bond of the past. There are callbacks to the older movies and past adventures that are done in a way that does not take away from the flow of the movie.
Gun and a radio. Not exactly Christmas, is it?
Were you expecting an exploding pen? We don't really go in for that anymore.
One of the best things about the movie, though, is that it doesn't just focus on James Bond. It really develops the character of M, and, most importantly, her relationship with Bond and her other agents. Dench does a wonderful job in her last performance as the character. Her chemistry with Craig is undeniable and builds a strong central focus for the movie.
I think you lost your nerve.
What do you expect, a bloody apology? You know the rules of the game. You've been playing it long enough. We both have.
Maybe too long.
Speak for yourself.
Skyfall also has an extremely strong villain. Javier Bardem gives a captivating performance as Silva, a betrayed agent from M's days in Hong Kong.
MI6. You're living in the ruin as well. You just don't know it yet. At least here, there are no old ladies giving orders and no little gadgets.
Plus, the score and cinematography for Skyfall are fantastic. Everything came together to form a great cinematic experience for fans and newcomers to the franchise.
And the number one best James Bond movie is Casino Royale. Casino Royale is not just the best Bond movie, it's quite possibly one of my favorite movies, period. In this daring reboot, James Bond starts from scratch. We see him earn his 00 status and sent on his first major mission to stop a man named Le Chiffre from winning money at a high-stakes poker game to fund terrorist organizations. However, the rabbit hole goes much deeper than Bond or MI6 could have predicted. Accompanied by the stunning Vesper Lynd, James Bond fights for more than just a card game in this stylistic, cool, brutal, character-driven, and emotional adventure. I am very passionate on how much I love this movie. I could talk about it for hours, but this thing is nearly flawless. Martin Campbell returned to direct 11 years after Goldeneye with a new Bond in Daniel Craig. And I know it's controversial to say, but his portrayal has been the most dynamic and relatable of any of his predecessors. He's without a doubt, in my mind, been in the two best Bond films to date, with one more coming out next year. The style of this movie speaks for itself. The black and white intro through the masterful opening credit sequence is a feast for the eyes, while the late Chris Cornell's You Know My Name fills your ears with pure excitement, which results in the most exhilarating first few minutes of any film I've ever seen. I get absolutely amped every single time I see it. The music throughout the whole film adds so much, and the visuals may not be as epic as Skyfall, but they're exceptional in their own right. Thrilling and innovative action sequences combined with quiet, poignant character scenes and intense, suspenseful moments add up to a perfectly paced movie. Vesper Lynd, M, and Le Chiffre surround Daniel Craig's 007 in a tragic story that is as heartbreaking as it is heart-pounding. I love Casino Royale. It is the best Bond movie right now, and it perfectly represents the appeal of this character, molded him to fit the time it came out in, and added more character and grit to this icon than had ever been seen before. It may have felt new and different, but at the end of the day, you know his name.
Bond. James Bond.
There are a lot of Bond movies that just barely miss this list, so you can check out how the honorable mentions stacked up in a new episode of The Countdown Continued on my personal channel right now.
We want to hear what you guys think.
What's your favorite Bond movie? What do you want to see us cover next on the show? Leave a comment and let us know.
To keep in touch, you could like my Facebook page or follow along on Twitter.
And you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, or Twitch, where I stream on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
And you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
We'll catch you right back here next week with the worst of Mr. Bond on a brand new episode of 5 Top